Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. In today's video, we are talking about a team that made some small moves in free agency, but they probably lost more than they got. And that team is the Boston Celtics, who lost Gordon Hayward to the Charlotte Hornets, but were able to sign Tristan Thompson and Teague. Before we get too far into the Celtics, though, I want to remind you all to leave a like and subscribe. I've been appreciating all of the support that I've been receiving lately, and I hope to see that continue. Without further ado, let's talk a bit more about the Celtics. I obviously think that the bigger of these two moves is going to be the Tristan Thompson signing. While I don't necessarily agree with it, and I think that this is a big overpay for him, I think that he had a value much closer to like the minimum or biannual exception, and I had him labeled as one of my top 8 most overrated free agents. I also think that the Celtics needed to sign some kind of center to address a position of need, and Thompson is a center, so that does fit that specific need that they had moving into this offseason. I would have rather seen this team get into the Steven Adams sweepstakes and try to get a deal done to acquire him, but obviously that would have probably required them to have the Gordon Hayward contract on their books, and after he opted out, it probably wasn't happening. So Tristan Thompson is a decent backup plan. Once again, I think that they overpaid for him, but he is still a respectable player. I don't think that he's going to be able to make the same impact he made on that Cavs team that won the NBA Finals in 2016. That was 4 seasons ago, and Thompson's best attributes on the defensive end of the floor were the fact that he can actually guard on the perimeter a little bit. He's laterally quick enough to switch off onto some wings and do a nice job playing defense on smaller guys on other teams. But with Thompson aging and getting onto the wrong side of the big 3-0, I don't know if he's going to have that same ability in upcoming seasons. With the Cavs the past couple of years, he's remained a replacement level center, and he's not a bad player, but he's also not the big difference maker that he was with those Cavs teams when they were regularly making NBA Finals runs with him as one of their probably 4 or 5 best players. On offense, he doesn't have much value. He's pretty much nothing but a rim runner, and while that is important, I'm not sure that having a guy with such low offensive value is worth the contract that they shelled out for him. He really can't shoot. He doesn't have much ability as a playmaker out of the post, not a good passer. He's also a really good rebounder, though, and that screen setting stuff that he can do on the offensive end is really underrated. As I've said before with players like Cody Zeller and Rudy Gobert, being able to set good screens is a valuable trait, and Tristan Thompson is another one of those big guys that does it exemplary. Overall, when you take all of these factors and put them together, I think the Celtics overpaid for a guy who's probably not going to make the biggest impact on their team. But if they can get 2016 Tristan Thompson levels of impact, this will be a nice way for them to recoup some of the value that they lost when Gordon Hayward decided to abandon ship. I don't necessarily think that Tristan Thompson is a better player than Daniel Theis, so I believe he'll be coming off the bench for this team. But he is a nice systemic fit since they love to switch. He's a player who's going to be able to switch off on those ball screens and is definitely going to be a good replacement for Enes Kanter on this team. He fits the system better than Kanter, and he's actually respectable on the defensive end of the floor, which is a massive upgrade over what you are getting from Kanter, who is basically a defensive zero. I don't love this signing, but I also think that there were other players that you could have done worse by overpaying. Mason Plumlee would be the one that would immediately come to mind. I even think like Montrezl Harrell and Serge Ibaka are getting a bit overpaid considering their positional value. It's not a scarce position, the center is, and signing a guy to a big dollar deal is not the best move in my opinion, but they did get Tristan Thompson for fairly cheap. He's only on a 2-year deal if I'm not mistaken, so it's not like he's going to be clogging up their cap for years to come. So overall, I think that this is a pretty average move. I'm not sure it made the Celtics all that much better, but it was a position of need, and they have addressed it now. Now, the other obvious position of need for the Celtics going into this offseason was acquiring a backup point guard, and they did that when they signed Jeff Teague to a minimum contract. I don't think that Jeff Teague is particularly good anymore. We saw him really struggle with the Atlanta Hawks last year. And I didn't watch many of those games, but hearing from people who did, he was pretty atrocious and did not look like an NBA player, which is sad at this point to say because Jeff Teague in his prime was spectacular. He made an all-star game back in 2015, I believe, when the Hawks were the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference. But he's not at that same level anymore. He has fallen off, and at this point, bringing him in is not going to do very much to make your team a whole lot better. I actually think that Brad Wanamaker is a better player than Jeff Teague, and Wanamaker was their backup point guard last season. So I actually think this is a downgrade at the backup point guard position, and I don't love the move whatsoever for the Celtics. So pretty much the Celtics this offseason have made a move I'm neutral on in signing Tristan Thompson, a move that I don't like in signing Jeff Teague, a move that I am neutral on in drafting Aaron Nesmith, and a move that I don't like in drafting Peyton Pritchard. So overall, in my opinion, they've gotten worse, and I don't think that that's an objective opinion because Gordon Hayward was a very important player to this team and what they like to do. So losing him for nothing, obviously, is a heavy hit. I still think that this team is good, and they will be a top 5 or 6 team in the Eastern Conference next year. Probably top 5. I would put them ahead of Toronto at this point, but I would say that they've fallen behind Milwaukee, Miami, and Philadelphia. So yeah. Oh, maybe Brooklyn too. So they're like the 4th or 5th best team in the Eastern Conference, which isn't where they want to be, but they still have 2 very valuable commodities. They have 2 big wing players that are super talented. They're both very young, and they're both under contract. That's the most valuable thing you can have as an NBA team. And Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are the future for the Celtics. And they have time to build around these guys because they're still very young. And I would be very surprised if neither of those 2 guys wins an NBA Finals in a Celtics uniform. But I'm just saying that next year doesn't look like the year that that's going to happen. They still have a really good starting lineup. It's the starting lineup that we saw them run out for the large majority of the playoffs last season with Kemba Walker, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Daniel Tice. We saw that team wreak havoc on the Toronto Raptors, and they were actually able to defeat the Raptors even without Gordon Hayward in a 7-game series. Then against the Miami Heat, they were able to win 2 games despite not having Hayward at full strength for the entirety of that series. He came back for a few of the games, but he wasn't able to do too much. He was not super impactful due to coming right off the injury. So obviously that starting lineup is very talented, and keeping that intact was key for them. But the bench is where I start to have questions. Who's the backup point guard? Is it Jeff Teague, who wasn't very good last year? Is it Peyton Pritchard, who's a rookie? Is it Carson Edwards, who wasn't even good in the G League last year? On the wings, is Romeo Langford ready to take a step forward? Is Aaron Nesmith going to be ready to play right away as a rotational guy in his rookie season? Is Semi Ojeleye going to take a step forward on offense and be able to do something besides shoot corner 3-pointers? Is Grant Williams going to be ready to step into a bigger role? I think that is probably the most likely one. I think Grant Williams is a solid role player, and we're going to see him get plenty of minutes for the Celtics in their playoff rotation this year. And then at backup center, how many minutes is Rob Williams going to get as compared to Tristan Thompson and Daniel Tice? So overall, there's a lot of questions about this team. I don't think that they are very deep, and for that reason, I think that they've fallen back a little bit in the Eastern Conference over this offseason. However, there's a chance that you disagree. Maybe you think Tristan Thompson was the missing piece and he pushes this team into true championship contention. Obviously, that's not my opinion on the subject, but if you disagree, let me know in the comments. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I think that's it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you all again very soon.